apartment. That's because where I live. Yes. I don't know if I ever told you guys this, but my little podcast studio is built around a Amish made coffee table. And so it's just this rectangular coffee table, decent size, and I have a boom arm, which is, if you ever seen like podcasts or YouTube channels, mainly YouTube channels or anything with video, I should say, where you'll see the host pull his mic down from. It seems like he's just pulling it from the sky. It's really usually next to him and it's clamped on to something. In this case, mine's clamped on the side of my coffee table. And I put like a microfiber, I can't even say that word today. Just, you know what I mean. Cloth underneath it so it doesn't scratch up the table. And then I have my podcast board, my Rodecaster Pro, sitting on the table in a case. And then I open the case and turn it on. And then I have another thing that's clamped on the other side of the table. That's where if I want to do any kind of like lives or videos or anything, it can hold my phone. I just put it in there and it clamps on, and then my phone just stays steady. And I got a little headphone stand for my Sony headphones. They sit up there. And then I got a little portable majiggy here. That guy. I use that to see things if I need to read anything. And I got my laptop as always right next to me if I have to do any research. But, yeah, so we got that. And, of course, I got my phone. Mr. Bullet, what are you doing? Hey, don't you get on the podcast board. You know what? Since there's no guest at this particular second, go ahead. Do what you got to do. Get it out of the way. You want to hit a button? You want to mute my mic? What do you want to do? No? You're walking away. All right. Turn your ass to me. Yeah, that's what we all want to see is your butthole. That's wonderful. That's delightful. This is a deliciousness this guy brings to us. Bullet, get off the table. I let you get away with murder, don't I? Okay. Anyway, I don't want to screw up a very fun episode and really sweet guest just because of my stupidity and because of my awkwardness. This is a good episode. I hope you guys enjoy. Again, the support is always appreciated. My gratitude is just it goes out to all of you. I love you all. I do. I really love you all. Bullet, not now. We're getting out of here. We're getting into the guest. Okay. You cannot screw this up. He's climbing all over the table. There you go. That was him getting down. All right, guys. Let's get into the show. All right, guys. We're here again. So I found another site where I started finding some people. I always let people know for those who are podcasters or look for people to interview. And some people are doing papers on others and, things like that. So I found this like matchmaker site that's another podcast site, but unfortunately it costs a lot to keep it up. So I just started reaching out to these people on social media, and this is, I think, our first guest from that site, or maybe the second. And I was reading his profile, and he's very fascinating. I was enjoying what I was reading and wanted to have him on. So you want to introduce yourself, buddy? Tell a little about yourself?
Sure. I'm known as, I was known for years as a single name artist called Jael. And then I found out after I got on the internet, I found out that what happened was there were all kinds of Jaels in the world. And most of them had to use their last name. For a long time in our culture, it just wasn't popular, so I could get away with it, but no longer. So now I'm known as Jael, the Music Man.
Gotcha. And how do you spell the first one? Is it Jael?
Jael. Right. It's very simple. Gotcha. It's actually my initials, but it's also a name from the Bible, and I like the meaning of it, so I thought, okay, I'm going to use that.
Fair enough. Yeah. Were you all was that something that you were always passionate about and into as far as music goes?
Yeah, I think so. I started in music business. I'm 65 now, just to clear the air. Okay. And I started in the music business when I was 14. So I was writing songs. I've written over 3,000 songs. I've had a lot of albums out, about 103 records I've played on or contributed to or something. So that's kind of my credentials. And I've rubbed shoulders with people that you'd know and people that you don't. And that I think are maybe better than the ones you do. So,
Yeah, that's the case. There's a lot of people. I've been talking to my friends about this. How and not to go on a like tangent on how some people are terrible and good, but one of the things when I'm in the truck in my other job and we're driving around and we're getting to our destination, there's a lot of music on where it's just people sampling other music and they're not even really trying. It's the same song, same chorus, just about, other than maybe a couple changed words. And another thing that I was really fascinated about is that a lot of these people that are so renowned as artists, let's say like a Beyonce. Well, Beyonce doesn't write; she barely writes any of her music. She's she's a very good vocalist. She's a very good performer and dancer, but she doesn't write anything for the most part.
Yeah, I got a story about that.
Okay.
One of my early managers was the guy who also handled Beyonce.
Okay.
And he did the deal with Sony Music for the band before they, I guess,
Destiny's
whatever
Child.
they were called, Destiny's Child, yeah. So anyway, he got the first deal through, and he said to me at one point, he said, "Jay, you are probably the most talented guy I've ever met." Now, I'm not saying that to tone to toot the horn, but to point out something. He said, "The problem with you is you know the business side." He said, "And I can't take advantage of you like I could take advantage of other people." He said, "And somebody who's 80% as talented as you is going to get me to sign them in my attention first because I can take 100% of what they do." He said, "I can barely get away with 30." So he's like, 100% of 80% as talented is way better than 30% of a very talented person. So I just took that to heart and said, "Yeah, I understand. I get where you're coming from."
Yeah, no, it could be a very crooked business, I'm sure. But and again, like I said, it's not to take away from her actual gifts, but it's when you look at some of these people who are known for, they're considered like icons in music, and it's like, well, what does she do? I mean, yeah, she's a good dancer, but she's not the greatest dancer ever. She's a good vocalist. She's not the greatest vocalist ever. And then she doesn't write. It's like it really, but she's known. Like there's people when they have like these fan bases.
That's appeal. Let's be real. That's what what it's all about. How many units can a person sell? And from the business side of it, that's it. And she was willing to be used by whoever wanted to use her at that point. I consider these people actually not artists, but more like human paintbrushes. They have no vision for what they're doing. They only have skills. So it's like being a photocopier. You can make a photocopy or you can paint a masterpiece. But if you don't have a vision to paint the masterpiece, the photocopier will do.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's just one vocalist named Skylar Grey, and she's written a lot. She's like a known writer for Rihanna and Beyonce and a bunch of other people. And like a lot of her hits that she writes, like the "Love the Way You Lie" song, things like that, she wrote all that and gave it to Rihanna, and she turned it into a hit because she's because she's very talented herself, but she's also way more known than her. And one of the problems I have with it is where a lot of these artists, they don't have the feel for it. Like they don't have the passion for it. It's just a song to them. Whereas the person who wrote it, it's probably their story or something that happened in their life. And it just seems like people are just putting out music and you don't even really know where it comes from. You think it's like supposedly, from their life, but it's like, no, somebody else wrote that. And I know that that's in a contract. Like these writers get paid, so it's not like they're stealing from them. But I don't know. I kind of, for someone like you who actually does all your music and is, talented at overall, it's got to be disheartening where, you're trying to make it and you got these artists who are just so known for everything. And reality is they're not even half as talented as you.
Well, I had to put that to bed years ago because here's the thing. Like you can do the comparison game, but you're really never doing that. I mean, even after, for example, 3 years ago when I had my stroke and nobody thought I'd ever get out of bed again and I couldn't talk and I couldn't do anything. And now I'm doing like the greatest musical work I've ever done.
Awesome.
But 3 years ago, the world gave up on me. They said, you're done. And I had to realize this, that, we all have our gifts. We all have the things that we do. And I know writers who depend on other artists. I'll give you a case in point. Back in the day, Carole King wrote a song that, "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman." And she and Jeff Goffin were the writing team, and they credited the manager of Jerry Wexler. They gave him a credit on the song because he came up with the title. He came back and he said, I want you guys to write a song for Aretha Franklin,
Right.
and here's the title. So that's where that came from, and that's the reason he's on the credit. But the two of them really actually wrote the song. So, but here's the point: they wrote the song, and they wrote it for Aretha. It was like, it's kind of a match where Aretha's almost like a third partner there, and they're having to think like Aretha. They have to go and have to saturate themselves in Motown. They have to get the feel. They have to get everything that they're supposed to be doing. And it's really it's about a partnership. And in some cases, the writer and the artists are really partners working together, instead of being like, oh yeah, you're going to buy a song from so and so. That happens, but it's much more often that I find, even in the collaborations I've done, most of the time I'm actually working with the artist really closely to create the music they do.
Yeah, it's kind of like an actor trying to get into a role of maybe like a historic figure, and they go back and do research and try to put themselves in that person's shoes.
Yeah, so I really see a role for a talented singer and a performer, a great performer, to work with a writer. I see that as valid. I don't see that as being but I do appreciate it, when somebody can do it all.
Yeah.
I was saying to somebody recently, I said on one of my discussion boards in for the music business, they were talking about collaboration, like when you write with somebody else. And I said, well, my greatest strength is I'm a lyricist, but I write an awful lot of music, because I've only written, with other people, maybe 400 out of the 3,000 songs. Most of them are me, music and lyrics. But I said, here's the thing. When you get somebody that you write with that can do it all, they can challenge you in all things. If you are stuck with somebody who's only a lyricist or only an instrumentalist or only this or only that, they only have so many things they can challenge you on. And if you really want the very best for a song, I like to have somebody who can do more things with it.
Yeah, multifaceted, multi-talented. Yeah, it's got to help. Yeah, I mean, as for sure. I just, like I said, it's weird because I'm not like big into like pop music or anything that's going on out there. I mean, I'll take a listen. I have a decent ear for music, but when I hear what's going on out in the world, it's like, my God, because I was listening to the radio the other day, and it was just like, out of like 10 songs, and of course on the radio they play the same 20 songs in rotation, whatever the hits are, and then they usually bring back one or two hits and they play it ad nauseum as well, even though it's like a 10-year-old song. But yeah, when you listen to them, it's all sampled other music, and it's just, you can tell like it's just pre-written by someone else, and it's like, man, like what happened? And I know COVID has really hurt it, because there's not a lot of good quality music, or at least known quality music, that's coming out as much as there used to be. And it's the same thing with movies and TV shows.
Well, I think part of that too is the availability of the internet and the lack of gatekeepers. Gatekeepers have both a good and a bad effect on the music business. I think the bad effect is that they limit an awful lot by budgets and by, who's connected to majors, who gets the exposure and all that kind of stuff. That's bad. The good part is that they screen a lot of crap out of the business. The problem is that you get now with Spotify and, things like that, where artists can put up stuff. It was funny because back in the day, when I started in Jesus music. I started in the church. And people would come up to me and say, God gave me this song last night. You should hear it. And so I would listen for a couple of bars, and I would think, God's a really bad songwriter. Mm-hmm. And the reason I say that is because it's not God writing their music for them, but it's the impression that everybody has that what I do is really, really good. And they don't have any outside influence on them to say, you know what, you might want to rethink that or rewrite that or do something like that.
Yeah, no, you can't have any yes men around. That's how these artists get lost. They think they're all so talented, and then you realize like they had like one hit, and you're like, oh God, like they can't.
Yeah, well, one-hit wonders are wonderful people too, but they're just like you get this crazy idea that The whole world is waiting with, bated breath for my next release. And that's never true. It's never true. And so somebody is like, if you're there, fine. If you're not there, somebody else is filling the gap. So it's just one of those things that every artist wants to be that person that is desired by the whole world and never gets there.
Yeah. Well, I think one-hit wonders back in the day, one-hit wonders though could, like, one song could carry a whole album, and that literally can make you millions. Whereas now it could make you millions, but you could fade away much quicker because there's so many.
I don't think actually a one-hit. I'll give you an example of what's going on there. Back in the day when the majors were in control, if you had a publishing control of a song, for example, and you wrote something, you published it yourself, and you got it cut on a major label. One song would probably, even if it's not a hit, one song would probably pay you enough to live for a year. You could earn, back in the day, you'd earn about $30,000 for that song on the one publishing thing. But today, because of Spotify and all the different ways in which the publishing is divided, that same hit on that same major record release will pay you about $30. You'll be able to get a pizza. Mm. So go from 1 year's worth of living to, one meal's worth of surviving. And that's what you're dealing with in music right now.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
No, that's pretty much it. It's like, okay, it's not worth it anymore in the music business to be a musician. So why are you getting more and more crap? Because the stuff being thrown up there is just people who are looking for that $1 million payday who aren't realistic, that it's not even there anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's bad enough they're already screwing the artist. I forget what it is. It's like 1,500 streams or something like that counts as one purchase or one unit as a download or one album. It's like, how?
Pretty close.
Yeah, unless you're like Eminem or someone so big, it's not going to happen for you. Like, you're not going to sell the units you would want to sell. And hard copies, it's like most people don't sell that many. And even the biggest artists, a lot of times they sell maybe 100,000. And if you want to go gold, you got to sell 500,000. If you want to go platinum, it's 1 million. So you got a long ways to go.
Yeah, well, I'm in Canada, and the numbers are smaller, but so is the population. So
sure, yeah, it's true too. But so was God mainly the biggest inspiration for your music, or are you telling a lot of your stories in life, like experiences, or like?
Well, here's the thing. I get that question a lot, actually. And here's what I would tell people. I would say, Christians are not, one-sided artists. They have lives, they have experiences like everybody else. And there's a misconception. It's the idea that if I were a painter, for example, that the only thing I could paint would be like heads of Jesus or something. And so you go to see an exhibition, and after the first couple of paintings, you're like, this guy's pretty limited. So when I do my work as a musician, I'm drawing from all aspects of life. I'm not drawing from the religious side, sort of thing. When I started as a Jesus musician, my conclusion was that the most important thing I could do was to help people understand that they can have a relationship with God and that life can be bigger, not smaller than they thought it was. And so my goal is to show that bigger side of life, not the smaller side. So it's not I do a lot of non-religious music.
Yeah.
But that's where I started. Anyway, I started back there, and it was a matter of trying to help people understand that concept that was motivating my earliest stuff. After 3,000 songs, you'd start feeling like, this guy can't do anything except preach sermons, and I'm not really that interested in sermons. Most people aren't.
Yeah. Well, if you have a theme too, like if you do 3,000 songs, but you have 20 songs or whatever, 30 songs about God, it seems like that's the constant. But reality, you have a huge catalog or discography that proves that's not true. And sometimes it's also, what have you done for me lately? So if more of your recent music is about that, then people are going to take to that and say, oh, okay, he's
well, here's the thing. Like, my last album is called Feeling Used Yet. And it's really about government overreach and the fact that people are losing their freedoms hand over fist. artists have always been, don't mess with art. It's free speech. It's my freedom, and I need my freedom to be a functional artist. And we believe that, except for now. We now think that, it's okay that we lose that freedom in order to keep everybody safe. It's kind of like, Patrick Henry back in the founding of America said, give me liberty or give me death. And I could just see that today, people would say, well, what he should have said is give me safety or give me my mommy. It's like that's really stupid stuff. It's actually a lyric out of one of my songs, actually. Okay. Give me safety or give me my mommy. It's like that is what we have become, and it's like stupid.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's good that you become like you're a well-rounded artist. Like you want to talk about very personal things. There's a lot of people don't want to even like share much of their life. It's just stories, other people's stories, or vague stories of their life, and or exaggerations in their life. But it seems like you're delving into topics that are actually important, because you're right. There's a lot of things that have been. There's a lot of things.
Yeah, go ahead. It's really kind of funny, because when you say that, the number of people who actually feel like if they were to do an album like I just did, they would feel like they would alienate probably half of the country, and they'd lose those sales, and it would be something that no record company wants to do. I had a publicist fire me over it. They said, no, we don't do political. If you do political, you're out, you're gone. So I'm like, okay, I've been paying you, and what for? You're not in my free speech world. So, it's good that we part company, because whatever you're saying doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's just about just bringing a conversation to the table. I think a lot of people, that's the thing with cancel culture and everything. No one's allowed to have a different take. And and it doesn't matter how controversial or not. A lot of times it's just something just so basic. I've seen something the other day, like Whoopi Goldberg said something about the Jewish people, and it was completely like off base and was wrong. But like, can we just have the conversation? Can someone just enlighten her and let her know why what she said was stupid, instead of just putting her in a corner and say, no, you're suspended for 2 weeks and you got to sit on timeout. You're not allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty. You know what though? When you overcome things in your life, like you have your own physical challenges, and I have mine, and right. Even today, I don't have the voice I used to have, and I use Studio Magic to get it back, and I'm really doing good work, but it doesn't sound like it used to. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I have a new limitation I have to work with. You have limitations you have to work. Everybody's got them, and they're different for everybody. But the point is that if you're going to start cutting up this thing saying you're not allowed to be different, that just think about that. That doesn't just stay with ideas that are political. It crosses over. It affects you. It affects me, because people start to say, I can put you in a box and I can make you live there, and don't you dare try to get out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Have you run into that with like your fan base, where maybe you weren't so political or weren't so vocal about certain subject matter, and maybe they'll come out and say, "Oh, he's changing for the worse. He's losing it."
Oh yeah, I listen, when I gave up when I did an album that really didn't have much religious content to it. Like, I'm a Christian now, all my worldview is going to be fed by that. Uh-huh. But the difficulty is that I'm sorry, I just got interrupted by somebody here.
No, you're good.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that.
I was just talking about how some of your fan base, maybe they think you sold out because you're changing your content and you're being a little more vocal and open-minded to what's going on out there. And you were talking about...
Yeah, let me quote you a lyric from a song that I wrote when I was going through that first, getting away from, doing purely religious content.
Okay.
The lyric goes like this. It says, some say I've wandered and some say I've grown. There's many opinions, but if the truth were known, I follow a leader I watch every day. So in other words, I'm not really changing my worldview or my heart, but I'm changing my expression, and I'm growing. I'm not going to stick here where you think I need to be.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, and that's good. But if you stick to your guns and you stay who you are, it's a good chance that you can at least persuade some people. I remember back in the day, like when Metallica, they like cut their hair and their fan base lost their shit, and then they made the Black Album, and it was like, oh my god, this is terrible. And then now, in hindsight, like everyone thinks it's probably their best album, and it's like, oh okay, like because people just don't like change, but again, we're in this time where everyone is very, very sensitive, and you don't want to you got to walk on eggshells with everybody, it seems. But if to be who you need to be, you just got to be yourself, and especially as a musician, because too many people are putting out content that other people want to hear. But sometimes you have to bring new conversations to the table to make you think. I think people are just afraid to just think. And
Yeah, if the real artist had ever followed that, there would be no such thing as a Jimi Hendrix. There would be no such thing as a Bob Dylan. There would be no such thing as even Tom Petty more recently. Like, these are things that if people can't challenge things, these people would not even exist. Nobody would even go there.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, and that's I think the only form of entertainment that seems to kind of challenge it a lot of times are comedians, and they get crucified all the time for.
Yeah, like you look at what's happened to Monty Python, and that's really a sore spot with me, because like John Cleese was very cheerfully irreverent, and now he's like watching everything he's doing. He's not happy. He's not happy with what's going on, and the rest of Python isn't helping him. He's like the last holdout to fighting for the freedom for comedy to be comedy.
Yeah. I think I think we also want to erase history too. I mean, even with like the Confederate flag and these things, like regardless of what they stand for, we can't just act like it never happened. We can't just like,
I agree with you. Yeah.
it sucks. And but people grew up in times where this was normal and this wasn't normal, so on and so on. But it's like we just, there's times where in movies, like they take out certain language. Everybody knows about Tom Sawyer, and he had a friend with the N word, and that was his name. His name, I'm gonna say it. His name was Nigger Jim, and it's like, oh, well, we're just gonna call him Jim now. But it's like that takes away from the time period. I'm not saying it's right. No one should say that word. No one should use it towards another person, especially black. But if you take away from what that was representing, it just really sours it and makes it look like it wasn't that bad. And then we just act like history wasn't that bad. And we can't just forget where we came from.
I agree. You can't react to things and actually evaluate anything if you don't know the truth. And hiding the truth has never been helpful.
No, and that's good for you to stick to your guns like that, because, like I said, it's so easy to just. I mean, they always say, people just they sell their soul just for fame and wealth and all that, and it's a lot of that looks good, but how many of these people are actually happy, and how many of these people are actually just, they really are content with who they are as a person and where the direction of their music is going. It may seem like it because that's what they put out in their videos, but we don't really know how they really feel. And it's not all of them, but in general, I mean, because there are some people that are genuinely talented. Someone like Adele comes along, she can sing her ass off, she writes her music, she's just talented.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean she's happy either. We don't know where she's at, but she seems to be doing good. And she's another one where she all of a sudden she started losing weight, and all these girls who were bigger girls were like, "Oh my God, we're losing our idol." And she's just like, "Look, I'm just trying to be healthy, guys. Like, can I be healthy? Is that okay?
Yeah.
I don't want to die."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird business. But I did want to obviously delve into your stroke, because that's something that we have in similar because you going through something really traumatic. Where were you at kind of before that? Were you like cognizant of your health? Like were you? I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, here's the thing. Okay, like 10 years before I had the actual stroke, I had these little TIAs, which were a little bit alarming, and I was concerned, and so I started to study medicine. And I thought I was going to go for being a doctor at that point.
Can you explain what a TIA is? Sorry.
A TIA is a transient ischemic attack. And that's like a mini stroke. Okay. It's not really a stroke, but it's exactly the same thing, but it's kind of like a warning, Gotcha. It doesn't really do anything to you.
Gotcha. Okay.
So anyway, I was deciding then that, I really wanted to be a doctor. So I went, I did a whole bunch of stuff. It took the neurologist actually 2 years to tell me that I had a TIA. And then he said, "Oh, you've actually had two of them here. Look at on the brain scan here. This is the dead parts of your brain now." Like, okay, I just needed that, you know. You need to be told your brain dead every once in a while.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
I was studying and I thought I'm going to learn this, you know, and so I was. But at the time when I had the stroke, I was losing weight. I was feeling on top of the world. I was doing really well. And I was never really seriously overweight, but I was all in the wrong places and I wasn't healthy particularly, but I wasn't, you know, so I was trying to get healthier. I'm feeling good. And then I laid down in bed one night and I fell while I was laying down. It's like I'd never had that experience in my life. It was like suddenly the whole world turned over and I'm in bed laying down, but I'm literally falling down and I can't understand it. It's in my, I'm not figuring it out. So I try to get up and I'm losing everything. Like I won't go into the gory details of what happened, but it was bad. And I suddenly couldn't walk. I couldn't stand up. Then I lost my voice. It was like, okay, so something serious is going on. So I end up in the hospital. The doctor doesn't know whether it's a stroke or not, so he delays the stroke treatment until it's too late to use it. So he really creates a problem. He doesn't really diagnose anything for 12 hours. I'm laying in the hospital for 12 hours before they start taking care of me. So it's like really bad. I'm in. My friends have given up on me. Some of them are, you know, they're praying for me and everything, but they really don't think I'm going to make it. So that's what happened. And for the next month, I could scarcely get out. Like I could not get out of bed. They had to move me into a wheelchair for a friend to push me around, give me a little sunshine once in a while. But I had no capacity. They're feeding me through my nose, through a tube. If you can imagine living, but feeling like you're right at the edge of death.
Oh yeah, no, I've been there once before, and it's. I mean, mine happened when I was a child, so I don't remember as much as vivid as you do, but I remember enough, and it's. Yeah, it's weird how precious you don't realize how precious life is until you get to that point. Because I think a lot of times we feel like we're just untouchable, and then something just throws you for a loop.
It is a gift to discover the reality of the fragility of life, because then you realize what's important, what's valuable. You start doing things differently than you otherwise would.
Yeah. Did they say what actually caused your stroke?
Well, actually, nobody can actually do that.
Okay.
That's they know what the physical capacities are. It's a blood clot, and there's two kinds of strokes. There's called a hemorrhagic stroke and a ischemic stroke, and the difference is that one is a blockage in the blood vessel, the other one is a rupture in the blood vessel. And if you have a rupture, your odds of life are very low. You're not going to probably make it. But if you have a blockage, you're going to kill certain aspects of your brain, and you're going to create long-term, health issues and effects. But you're probably going to survive it. So I got in there, and by now, at this point, when I've had the stroke, I'm a full-fledged naturopath. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. So when I go in there, I can't communicate anything, so they're just doing whatever they want to. But by the time I got to the place where I could address what they were doing, I started to argue with them about my treatment, and they were like really surprised. But when I kind of showed them what I was talking about, and the MDs are really, they've taken over the medical world, but they have a lot of problems, and I respect their knowledge of a lot of things. They've gone to school, they've learned a lot. But there are a lot of things they don't know. And so I was able to communicate enough to show them that I had a different treatment idea in mind. It made sense to all of us on their staff plus me. And so I began right in the hospital, I said, I'm not going to get better doing this your way. I will get better doing it mine. And they said, well, let's try it. Let's see. So they were open, and we had a good relationship, and mine worked.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome. But now, did your like the direction of your music change as far as afterwards? Now that you have a different appreciation for life.
I would say not really, because I always had kind of a an understanding of a big picture of life. And so a lot of this stuff, I mean, there are certain things that I would look back on now and I say I probably wouldn't write that song again because it's a little bit trite. And yet it was kind of like, yeah, I was writing because that's, what was on the radio and it fit and it was fun and the band enjoyed playing it and all that stuff. And so there are things I wouldn't change about that because life is, sometimes you just have to party, and then
Yeah. Right.
other times it's like you want to be real serious. So I still kept all of that, I think. But the last album was, the post stroke album that I've had so far. And I'm back in the studio as of tonight to do part 2 of this. And we called it The Great Reset Chronicles. And as the subtitle, the first album was Feeling Used Yet. The second one is a very, very tough Christmas album. The one we're about to start is about the people that are underserved at Christmas, because everybody wants to talk about happiness and jingle bells and all this kind of stuff. It's like, do you realize how many people are in tremendous pain at this time of year? They've either lost loved ones, or they've had they've had a tragic breakup, or they've been abused, or they've been, and it's all connected to the drunkenness around the season, or it's about whatever. So I look at that and I think, all these people, they are really being ignored during this thing, and everybody's pretending to be happy. And I'm like, I don't want to use this album for that. So I've got this Christmas album called Outside Looking In, with 2 N's, right? Like looking into the in. Mm. But what is interesting about the record is that it really deals with these people's issues. And it's a tough record to listen to. It's not like it's a thing you're going to put on and go, oh yeah, I feel like a Christmas carol right now. It's like, no, this one is more for the people that are struggling. It's more for the people that become the death metal fans, even though it's not a death metal record, Yeah. But it's these are the people that say, no, I want to face some reality. Yes, I want to be entertained. I want it to sound good and have fun. And so there's a lot of tongue in cheek and poking fun at stuff during the record, but it's not the idea is that Christmas is about hope, not happiness. If you want happiness, go to the store, go to your favorite bar, go to whatever, and try to find it. But I doubt you're gonna. But if you want hope, there is something out there. There's something to live for, and that's what the record's about.
Yeah, no, I like what you're doing, because there's a lot of musicians get stuck in this whole, like, they have to force down your throat how they feel, whether it's how they vote or wherever, and it's nauseating. It's like, no thanks. But like you're using your platform, you're giving your opinions on things, and you're also letting them into your life, getting very personal. But you're also like you're sharing how you feel about things. But I don't think you're forcing it down their throat. You're just saying like, hey, this is something to think about.
Yeah, I really try not to force things down people's throats. And but when you're convinced you're right about something, it's really hard to kind of get off the hobby horse once in a while. But music helps you, because you can't do it in music. You can only do it. You can do it in an argument. It's really hard to do it in a song, because you're thinking about this and thinking, this song it's going to last longer than the issue, and it's going to last longer than if it's any good, it's going to do that. So I'm there. I want to do really good music that's relatable to people from all walks of life and all circumstances, and that's part of it,
Well, and as you said off the mic earlier, or off air, when we were talking about race, it's just like you're going to be intertwined with other races, other cultures, and you're going to get out in the world and you're going to see other people, and you're going to have different viewpoints than the average person who doesn't leave their town or city. You get to know so many awesome and, well, shitty people too, but you get to see the world a little clearer than just the average person who's sitting on their couch.
Yeah, I agree. I also think, I said this to you off the interview, but I think it's really important for people to understand that in sports and in music, we rub shoulders with people of other races, but it isn't the fact that we rub shoulders with them. And it's not that we're pushing for equality. I don't want equality with any of these people. What I want people to look up to. I want heroes who are different than me. And so when I look at a guy who's a black man who plays bass incredibly well, I think, man, I wish I could be that good. And then I'm not a bigot anymore. If I'm just saying, yeah, he's equal with me, I can be a bigot.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes people fight for these words that they sound good, but it's like, just be a good person and just treat people equally, and stop worrying about it. Because with the reality is we're not all equal, because that's not how we were born.
That's right. We have equal value as human beings, but we don't have equal talent, and we don't have equal capacity, and we don't have lots of things we're never going to be equal about. So I'm not about equality. I'm all about, equal value. Yes. Yeah. Okay. As a human being, I have the same value as another human being, and I don't have any problem with that. It's the idea that when I look at somebody else, somebody in particular, that I should have this comparative standard somehow or other, that I have to, either they have to be better than me or they're not worthy of my time. No, I don't believe that. I believe that everybody's valuable. But I believe that if you're looking for equality, you'll never find it in the world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think sports is another great example, because it's like, as a person, I'm an LA Rams fan. We won the Super Bowl this past year, and I was happy, and I watched the whole video, and just at the end of it, two of the major stars on the team that are veterans, one was white, one was black, and they're just hugging each other, saying they love each other. It's not for the camera. It's not because they want people to see, oh, look, a white and black guy's getting along. Let's just show you how we're really, how we represent our team and all this. It wasn't anything. It was just genuine. And it was the whole team. They were all hugging and loving each other up. And it had nothing to do with bullshit race or any of that. It was just, they loved each other because they fought together to get to this destination. They wanted to achieve a championship. They got it. And they were brothers at the end of the day. It may sound corny, but that's how they perceive it. They're brothers. They're interlocked with each other.
Teamwork will do that to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Teamwork will do that to you.
Yeah, and it has nothing to do with it. They don't give a shit about that. They shower together. They hang out together. They bleed together. They don't give a shit about the other thing. Like, if you're a dick, you're a dick, but it's not because you're white or because you're Hispanic or whatever. They're just like, you're a part of our team. Regardless if you were a starter or not, you're getting a damn ring. You're with us. It's just beautiful. And again, you don't have to win a championship to see that, but it's just as an example for someone I'm into. But and the same thing with music. You're constantly, rubbing your shoulders, as you said, with other people. And there's people who are white who have black inspirations. There's people who are black who have white inspirations. Maybe it's not said all the time. Maybe they don't come out and say, oh, Johnny Cash was one of my big inspirations. But they don't need to, because you can hear it in the music.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like with music and sports, it's such a thing where it's an unspoken thing that we just go, a race. Race doesn't really matter here. Yeah, you got your occasional dickhead who'll get drunk, like that receiver Riley Cooper, and he went on like a racist tirade or something. But like in general, like that's just it's not the norm. And these people just get along. They're around they're around each other, like different cultures all the time. They're forced to be. They're in locker rooms. They're on the field. And with music, you're constantly going to other concerts where you have to perform behind these people or next to them, and there's collaborations.
Well, here's the thing: you don't have to respect everybody you work with either.
No,
the reality is, but you do get to evaluate them in a different way. And I think music and sports are kind of illustrations of that, but they're certainly not the only, place where that can happen. And I feel like, it just needs to be amplified, I think, in other arenas. Because it really has helped us, I think, musically. Like I've got dear brothers that are just, totally different race, right? Some Asian, some black, some Hispanic. I've got everybody on my records for years and years. I've played with people from all different cultures and things. It's like they all bring something very cool to the table. They're not all cool people. Some people I would just say, I don't want to hang out with them. I mean, I use them on my record. They were great players, but they also did this. And I'm just not that's just not me,
Yeah, and that when you bump into with these guys, you're in the same business as them, so they know the things that you're going through, as you know what they're going through, and they know the tribe and tribulations of the business and just making a record, and so you have that respect for each other. And
so what it is like, even if there's no respect, that the reason for no respect is not race. It's like it's actually character. It's what you are inside that I don't like. and therefore I'm not going to hang out with you. But if I'll give you a shot, and you want another shot at it, you want to show me something you're doing that's really good, great, let's do it. I'm all for you. I'm going to pull for you that you become a better person as you live your life. That's basically it.
For sure, yeah. And I think that's something that's lost too nowadays, where it's like sometimes people of a different race or culture, gender, whatever, could not like each other, and it has nothing to do with the reason that the media wants to put it in. They like to put it in a neat little bow. It's like, well, it's because they're that. Oh, it clearly is because they're racist. But it's like sometimes you just don't like somebody because they're a dick. But
that's well said. Yeah, I agree with
you. Like you can't just dislike somebody because they're a dick or because they make bad choices in life or they're they're abusive to their animal or something. Like you gotta dislike them for a much deeper seated reason. It's because you hate the way they look, and it's not always that. And I think that's why that whole Martin Luther King that judge a character by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. It's perfect because. You don't have to. Like, who gives a shit about color? And as a person who's visually impaired, I've always wondered the theory of, like, I wonder if we were all blind for a year and we forgot what we look like, how much racism would be. I'm sure we would judge each other based on, like, vocal inflections or something because we're human and we can't help ourselves. But, I mean, racism would definitely have to go because how can you judge someone based on their color when you can't see them?
That's a good point. Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting because right now, with my stroke, I lost vision in one of my eyes.
Okay.
And so I have a visual impairment, but my other eye is like working perfectly. So right. I'm really grateful for that. I was just talking to my daughter about that this morning, and we were talking about what's going on. She's trying to help me treat. I have to daily treat the eye that's bad. So I was just saying, well, is anything improving? It's just still looking bad. And like, yeah, I think I'm going to get better, but the doctor told me last week I need I gotta get the front of my eye replaced, basically the cornea, the iris, the where the cataracts are, all that stuff. It's all got to go in order for me to get my vision back. So I'm like, okay. He says because of your strength of your good eye, you can probably put this off for a year, but that's your future is eye surgery. And I'm like, all right, that's another thing. It's just one thing that I have to deal with. It doesn't change anything else. Nothing. It's not about, whether I can see somebody's color or I can't see somebody's color. You are going to have to deal with that person on the inside at some point. It's like that's the reality of it.
Yeah. Well, I adopted this whole little thing where I say, like, a lot of times the people that are the most blind are the people who actually have full sight. Because they don't, because, when it comes to voting, they vote based on whatever reason, blind reason. They don't, even though there's certain things right in front of them, they just can't see it. Whereas a lot of us who are visually impaired or blind, a lot of stuff is very obvious and we just pick up on it right away. It's like, okay, cool. Like, yeah, I see that. Like, it's right there. And it's like, why can't
Well, I'm sure glad you noticed that. A lot of people seem to have missed it in this last election cycle.
Oh yeah, and yeah, all of them. But but I will say, as someone who has worse vision than you, like the way you're going about it is the right way. Because as a person, my left eye is all colors and motion, and my right eye is okay, but I can't drive and so on. But I don't let it stop me. But when I tell you, when I have good eye days, and my good eye days are nowhere near as good as your good eye days, I appreciate every damn second of it because it drives me, keeps me going, and I'm trying to get a major surgery done in Kentucky. That's where the best eye doctor in the world is, and maybe it'll make some change, maybe it won't, but it's not going to stop me either way. And the fact that you have one eye with basically perfect vision, like just hold on to that as much as you can because it's.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I like I said, it's like I'm grateful for the gifts I have. And I can't really claim any credit for it. It's like, I could have lost them both. And what would that do? It would just mean, I don't know what it would do. It would be, but I totally, having had one bad eye, I totally understand where you're coming from. Amplify, it's like, I see that what you're going through is far worse than what I'm going through, but then you can walk, and sometimes I can't.
I was going to ask you, that was my next question. What is your mobility like these days?
Well, I have gone from 0 to, probably 90%. I have very bad balance. I trip over things, and if I do a lot of falling, but I have a fairly good ability to move around. I'll tell you what really hurt was when I wanted to go back on stage after the stroke, and I felt like my voice had recovered enough to at least put on a good show. I found that I couldn't stand on the stage because the minute they turned the lights on, I fell over. Yeah, it's like everything is dependent on light. If you change it rapidly, I'm out of the game really fast.
Yeah. No, I think like
And
you're such a great example. That's why I think maybe it's great that I do audio, because it's like you wouldn't even know that you can't walk sometimes because you're so positive, and you're just appreciative of what you do have. Because I think some people who are closed-minded, they tend to think someone is supposed to act a certain way, look a certain way. I say ad nauseum that a lot of people say, well, you don't look blind. It's because, one, I'm not totally blind, but two, I don't have a dog or cane or anything of that matter. And it's like, well, but you carry yourself very well. You don't act like a blind person. It's like, well, and so I love that you're just you, and you stuck to your, like I said, you stuck to your guns. You're the same person, and yeah, you've evolved. There's some things I'm sure you have had to adjust and change because of having a stroke and losing some of your sight and all that. But I mean, you just talk to you, and it's just like, I'm sure there's probably deep down, there's a little part that bothers you when you struggle to walk sometimes, but you still carry yourself the same way. You're still the strong person. If anything, you've probably gotten much stronger because you've had to adapt and change and alter how you live. So I don't know. Kudos to you.
yeah, it's a fun thing. I was watching somebody staggering through a parking lot at church the other day, and it was kind of one of those weird moments where I turned to the person I was with and I said, do I look like that? And they said, actually, no, you actually walk, and very few people would actually know your struggles, because every time I put a foot in front of another, it's like, is it even in the right spot? It's like that is the degree that the difficulty is for me to walk. But I'm fighting every single day, and I figure that every time I fight to make that step look normal and to make it look like I'm just totally put together, every time I do that, I'm in therapy. I'm actually improving myself. So I don't worry about these things. I look at them as opportunities to practice. I have a grandson that's like really small, and he's just learning to walk, just taking the first steps. I said, you and Grandpa will learn together. We'll learn to walk.
That's cute.
So that's lots of fun.
That is adorable. And since you're kind of up to date what's going on in the world and everything, do you do any music? Because this is something I advocate and talk about a lot. Do you have any music for subject matters as like mental health?
Actually, I do. I don't know. Like, I can't even. All my life, I've been pointing at things that have been issues with people's, grasping the world, grasping the vision of what the world means, how it relates to them, and how they relate to it. And so when you're dealing with mental health, I've had issues with, there have been bouts of serious depression, bouts of serious times of challenges, but having, kind of a foundation, having something to fall back on has always served me well. But I've also been an observer of the world around me. So I've had friends that have committed suicide. I've had people who said, I'm, for example, one guy was feeling bad. He was locked into a gay lifestyle. He didn't want to be. And he said, I don't think I can get out. And eventually he took his life because he felt like he was so stuck. Yeah. And, there's a lot of people in the Christian world that would look at him and go, well, that's, God's judgment and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't go there. That's not, this is a struggle that he was dealing with. And to try to put it on all gay people or all this or all that is like to totally diminish the fact that this person is a person with struggles. And mental health to me is like that. You can't categorize it. You can't box it in. No. I've had, but in dealing with it, when I've written about it, I've written from the standpoint of who is the person going through this stuff? Who is the real person? Not what is the issue, but what is the person, or who is the person? And it's been about me putting myself in their shoes and walking that pathway and saying, this is what I feel you feel. How right am I? And then I go back to those people, and often I'm like, yeah, you really nailed it. So I have always addressed those issues, yes.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's great. I figured you did. I just wanted to ask because, yeah, you're right. Because there's a lot of people we tend to define people based on one or two incidences in their life. We don't really get to know them. We don't know anything about them. And if like the last thing we see of them or learn about them is they killed themselves, it's like, well, then they just must have been a damaged person and you know, whatever. And they were just broken. And it's like, yeah, but how do you get there? You're not born that way. How do you get to this point? And it's yeah, that's why I talk about it so much, mental health, because one, it impacts me on a daily basis. But two, you know, there's so many people like that who just don't make it, and we just write them off because like, well, yeah, they were broken. And it's like, no, man, something happened, and no one helped. And
yeah, well, and it's not. Here's the other part of that. You know, I was, and this is a story out of my real life. When I was a young guy, I was driving a truck for my father's business, and he was on a deadline one day, and he had a really, really tight deadline, and it was like, okay. I know I've got so many minutes to get to this shipping place to send this shipment out. And I'm driving over the bridge between Canada and the United States. And I'm driving, and it's not really registering to me at the beginning, but I see this car ahead of me with these four-way lights on. And I saw this guy, and he seems to be climbing on the railing of the bridge. And I'm thinking, do I stop and check this out, or what do I do? And I'm thinking, I'm really, really late. I'm going to go. So I drove past him, and in my rearview mirror, I saw him jump to his death. That was a very big moment in my life. And for a long time, I couldn't forgive myself for not stopping. But I have to realize this, that when you're dealing with people and their issues, that you're responsible for what you do, but you're not responsible for what they do. Yeah. And there's a point where you just have to let go and say, okay, you know what? I might have made a difference. I might have not made a difference. Even if I'd stopped, I might have lost the shipment, deadline. And I might have also, because when I got to the other side, I said, I can't quite wrap my mind around what I just saw, but there was a guy on the bridge who just jumped off. And he, the guy that was taking my money to get off the bridge, I don't know that he even thought about it. Was like, yeah, right. But it's like, those are one of those defining moments in your life where you realize something's got to change about me. And in the end, it's like, I might or might not have made a difference in that guy's life, but I know I made a difference in mine. From here on out, this is how I'm going to respond to those kinds of things.
Yeah. Take life experiences and adapt and, don't make the same mistakes. There's people that come into your life that maybe they're there for a month or two, but you get something from them. Take the positives from it and delete the negatives. Like I always say, you got to break the chain in your family, like the bad parts of your family. But there's still some good things there. Keep that. Keep the good morals or whatever they provide for you. But there's some things that maybe they're a little racist or something, a little closed-minded in certain issues. Well, get rid of that and just, and evolve and create your own lane.
It's an important thing to do. I'm just, you learn things, and you learn that there are things you can do things about, things you can't do things about. And like, accept the things you can't change the things you can, and move on.
Sure. So wrapping up here. So where can people find your music?
Right now, I would go to Jael. That's Jael. .bandcamp.com, and then put /album, and then another / and then hyphenate the title of the record, feeling -used yet, all like one word. And if you'll do that, you'll hear my latest album for free. If you want to download it, you can. And if you want to send me a donation for what we're doing and toward the next record, you can do that too. But it's not required. You can put a 0 in there and get it for free. Because the way I look at it, music to me is a gift. products, if I was sending you a vinyl or CD or something, I'd have to charge you for it because it cost me something.
Right.
But the music itself, have it with my blessing. And I hope you listen to lots more and find a lot more of my stuff.
Yeah, I'm actually going to check it out as soon as we get done here. I want to obviously support you. But I really appreciate you coming on, man. I really do. You're a good hang, good conversation.
Thanks. Appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, anytime. Do you have any? Is that like a site that you want people to go at, or do you have your own personal website or anything else you want to?
You know what? I have a lot of personal websites, and recently I switched my internet provider, and all of my sites right now are down, so you can't find me anywhere else. Almost, you can find me on Drupal, which is another kind of a music discussion platform for musicians to each other. It mostly exists to find collaborators and other people, but if you go there, I think you have to sign up for that, but it's free. And if you do, you can find my stuff under Jael Musicman. It's there, or Jael the Musicman probably. I often tell people, you know what John the Baptist and Winnie the Pooh have in common with me? We all have the same middle name.
Ah. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
That's cute.
So there you go.
That's adorable. But yeah, but if you do, and we'll keep in touch. I hope we can be friends, and just, if you need anything, I think you said you want to do some sort of write-up, whatever. Anything you need, I'll support you.
Yeah. Send me stuff on you, because I often feature, people that are, on my blog, which is, the blog is a Facebook group. It's called The Restoration Zone. You can go check that out too. Okay. I certainly I wear my faith on my sleeve on that. There will be days in which the post is largely, Christian information. Other times it's just different people that have struggled, that have come through things, and it's all over the map. They're all different faiths, all different ideas. So that's their Restoration Zone. It's for people who want to be overcomers and not victims.
Perfect. Yeah. So after this, we'll keep in touch, and whatever information you need, I'll provide. I just appreciate your time. And again, whenever it'll be a little while till this episode comes out. So when it does, if your websites are up by then I'll put them in the link description.
Okay. Yeah, they probably will be. But here's the thing too. The more you can send me, the more I can promote you on my stuff too, and tell people that this blog show is coming.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, we'll definitely keep in touch. I'm not disappearing. I mean, I wanted to get this episode in, but after that, everything else is just friendly. So
it's all good.
All right, brother. Thank you again. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Tim. Good to meet you.
Same here, man.
We'll talk to you later.
Yeah,
bye.
Pleasure. Thank you. Oh, what a fun episode. I really enjoyed him. Man, that was a good guy. It's always nice to talk about music and just other avenues. It's nice when people have other experiences and things they're delving into. I'm definitely going to check out his music, because I bet he is very talented. He has like a very, not super rugged, but there's something there to his voice that I can tell there's probably some music gifts. And I'm always looking for new artists, because music sucks nowadays. And I'd love to find these hidden gems that are just talented. And before I get out of here, my last thing, remember last week, which is hilarious, because this is just is it a day later? Yes, a day later, really. But just we'll pretend. This last week, there was a package that came to my door, and I did not know what it was, and I didn't think it was for me. It's good news. It's actually the genetic testing kit from Cincinnati. Actually, it's from Kentucky, but the Cincinnati Eye Institute. And so me and my mom are going to be able to do our test our blood and blood type and all that. So actually, that's what it was. I had no idea what it was, because I didn't even think it was coming, because they didn't get back to me. So that's the update of that. That's what that package was. I thought about just throwing it in there at the end, but it's like, nah, I'll just give it to them next week. Keep you guys waiting. It's like like when Netflix episode comes in it'd be like how they're doing with some of these shows, where there's like a part 1 of the season, and then there's a part 2. Like a month later, or a couple months later, you get part 2. I'm giving you guys a week 2, or next week. I'm sorry, I'm sleepy. I'm hungry. I gotta go eat. Bullet was here most of the time, but he had to get out of here. He had a skedaddle. But yeah, I'm on to go get some food, go to the grocery store. I hope you all have a good week, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.